we're going to be discussing today the Catholic Church. I have mentioned the Catholic Church before as being very important in respect of Habsburg identity, that they see themselves as being involved in a mission in association with the Catholic Church, as furthering its ambitions, promoting it, and at the same time getting ideological substance for themselves and their dynasty by their association with the Catholic Church. What is the Catholic Church? What does it believe in? And I want to run through this very, very swiftly because a lot of people misunderstand what's going on here. The Catholic Church, by around 1500, has been going around for a very long time. It's been there for a millennium and a half. Even at the time that the Roman Empire fell, the Catholic Church had been there half a millennium. It is an extraordinary institution. It is the longest living institution in the world. And it still has tremendous influence, longevity. It looks to me as if it's going to be around for another 1500 years at least. What are the basic principles of Catholicism? Well, if we're dealing with Lutheranism, if we're dealing with Protestantism, it's basically straightforward. What is the source of authority? The source of authority is the Bible. It's never as clear as that with the Catholic Church. The sources of authority in the Catholic Church would be more than one book. They would be more akin to the sort of collection of books you can see around you at the moment. That there are multiple texts of authority, all of which have been sanctioned, given credence, made credible by their traditional use, by their becoming part of the Catholic tradition. So of course there's the Bible. That is absolutely fundamental to Catholicism. But there are the lives of the saints, the writings of the Church Fathers, the writings of the councils, particularly the first councils that met in the earliest centuries AD, the great councils. There are the pronouncements of popes. There are the pronouncements of church councils that have met subsequently. There are the writings of learned men, and in particular the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century, and St. Thomas Aquinas attempts to link Aristotelian philosophy with Catholicism and to unite the two, and he does it very successfully. So in other words, there is a vast range of different sources of authority, and quite frankly, there's so much you can more or less believe anything you like. And a lot of Catholics do. There's no absolutely coherent set of beliefs about what religion should be. And there won't be in Europe until John Calvin comes along. And John Calvin actually states, this is a scheme of religion. It is the first scheme of religion that is established and recorded in Europe, and it's for Protestantism, and that's in the middle of the 16th century. There is nothing like that for Lutheranism, and there is nothing like that for Catholicism. There is no absolute set of doctrine, beginning with the basic points and going down so that there's an answer for every issue you may have. The Catholics will eventually, in the 1550s, 1560s, put together what is called the Proceedings of the Council of Trent, and that will do a pretty good job But Calvin is there already in the 1540s doing this. So in other words, there's a tremendous variety in belief and what it is possible to believe within the Catholic Church. But there are certain limits. Firstly, from the middle of the 15th century, you cannot deny the authority of the Pope. Earlier in that century, there had been church councils that had attempted to go and establish that a church council was something superior to a pope, and that they could tell the Pope what to do, and they could tell the Pope what doctrine was. And in the 1450s, the appeal to councils, the idea that councils are superior to popes, that is declared a heretical belief. So, in other words, the authority of the Pope is recognised. And the second would be the doctrine of transubstantiation. That is, that when the Mass is performed, the body and blood of Christ are physically present in the sacraments. It's a philosophical idea. It's the difference between external appearance and internal reality. That the external appearance of bread and wine conceals an internal reality of the body and blood of Christ. And the superficialities of taste mean that you don't sense, when you consume the bread and the wine, you don't sense that you're actually swallowing blood and flesh, but you are. And all priests, however bad they are capable of performing this miracle. These are the two critical aspects of Catholic belief. There are others, but I've honed in on these two really salient ones: papal authority and the doctrine of transubstantiation. What do people actually believe? What do people think that the Catholic Church is all about? We've got a problem here. We don't know. There are two possibilities, and I'm going to try and reconcile them. First, we have what are called Dominican sermons. The Dominicans are, rather like me, they go around in black cloaks. They are friars. They preach. And they preach because preaching is not normally a part of divine worship at this time in the Catholic Church. So, in other words, for people to learn what Catholicism is, they have to listen to what the preachers are saying. And we have model sermons. And these model sermons, these are ones given to Dominican friars. This is, to help them along. And they indicate really quite a philosophical and theological complexity. They are presuming that the audience is well versed in the Bible, well versed in the elements of doctrine, and generally well equipped to understand quite complex arguments. That's the one. The second level is accounts of priests in the countryside. They say these people know nothing. People know nothing about religion. They've barely heard of Jesus Christ. Now, okay, we can say that's a bit hyperbolic, but what I've done on the Moodle site is put up some wall paintings taken from a medieval church in Chaldon in Surrey, and you can have a look at these. And this is the sort of church's interiors were painted, and this is the type of thing they're painted in with, and they are crude in the extreme. They are showing the Last Judgment, these pictures, and you'll have people either going up to heaven and being welcomed by angels, or being eaten, sawn apart, limbs torn off by demons particularly with long tongs, which they heat up, and then pull the arms and legs off sinners. Don't try that at home. So in other words, we've got quite sophisticated sermons on the one hand, and really quite primitive communications of what religious belief should be about and the nature of religion. How do we reconcile this? My guess is that the Dominican sermons, firstly, are model sermons, that this is giving, if you like, the maximum, and that they're also intended for towns. And towns, cities, tend to have a more sophisticated milieu than urban, than rural environments. In the countryside, then the Catholic Church will resort to more primitive methods of communication, and it will attempt to frighten people. And the image that it will always convey is the grim reaper who will come along and scythe you off and take you to the other place. So in other words, there's a very unsophisticated attempt to communicate a message of fear, to try and get people into line. It's the same technique as the comedy duo Witty and Valance are attempting at the moment with their silly graphs. The graphs that are intended to shock people into making them abide by the rule of 6, or whatever the latest nonsense is. How do people actually worship? And one of the things that I want to bring home, and I've put up some videos on the Moodle site to show what a Catholic service is like. And a Catholic service, if you want to get an impression of a Catholic service today, go to a Greek Orthodox one. Firstly, you will be standing. Secondly, there's no participatory element, you just watch. There's no singing. There's not even much in the way of communal prayer. You're there to spectate, to watch a performance. And that performance takes place in a church which is dark, and churches in the Middle Ages are always dark because they have very narrow windows, because they have to operate all year, and the windows are unglazed normally. So in other words, or if they are glazed, they're painted glass. So in other words, not much light comes through, so they're gloomy. But there's one part which is lit up, and that is the area around the altar. And you would watch a performance in the altar area, and you could barely see it, because invariably stretching between the nave and the altar is a screen, what the Greeks and Greek Orthodox religion, Romanian Orthodoxy, is called an iconostasis. It's because it's got icons of the saints on it. And these iconostases, or rood screens as we generally call them, in this country not many survive. They're all pulled down in the Reformation, but some stone ones survive, for instance at Canterbury Cathedral. And this means that you're not really being able to see what's going on. You just see an area of light in which very finely dressed creatures, men, are performing what you are told is a miracle. They are converting the body, the bread and the wine into the blood and body of Jesus Christ. And at the end of the performance, they will invariably consume themselves the bread and the wine. You will just have to, accept that you're not part of this, really. You're just watching it. On special occasions, they may distribute the bread. They may distribute the bread and the wine to dying people. And in one of the film I've got on the Moodle site, it's a reconstruction, hilariously in a Protestant church, a reconstruction of a medieval service, and the bread and the wine is being given to an elderly dying couple. They come forward, it's what's called the viaticum. They come forward and are allowed into this lit interior. What people are seeing is almost a magical performance. And it is no accident that in Protestant England we have a word, hocus pocus, which means load of magical rigmarole, hocus pocus, and it's a corruption of the Latin hoc est corpus. This is the body of Christ. Thank you.